Hi, welcome to Ani Prime Recap. You wear a demonic ring capable of performing any magical wish. However, for this to happen, it will devour your spiritual energy. We will continue our journey in the anime Welcome to Demon School, episodes 4, 5 and 6. In the morning while eating, Iruma receives a warning from his grandfather, saying that he has placed him in the class of the most misfit and rowdy students in the school, as they cause more trouble and draw more attention than to his grandson. The boy will be able to lead a normal life of a high school student. The boy just accepts as usual and goes to school together with his two friends, Clara and Asmodeus, who also find out that they will be in the delinquent class together. The genius boy says he doesn't mind this, after all he would like is to be in the same class as his new friend. The school bell rings and the students start to check their names on the list, a moment of joy for some and sadness for others. Clara already knew that she was in the same class as Iruma, but she still decided to celebrate again, drawing even more attention to the trio. The new classmates start walking the halls of the institution looking for the room of misfits. The protagonist is amazed by all the aspects of that place that reminded him of a school in the human world, even though he has never studied in one. At that moment, a magical arrow surrounds Iruma. Clara quickly begins to chase it. Asmodeus says that this indicator is probably a guide that will lead the honor student to his respective class. The group then begins to follow the strange sign, and after a while they wonder if they were actually being led out of the school. The trio comes across an underground entrance and follows the indicated path, passing through a path full of garbage with an unbearable stench, then finally comes face to face with an old abandoned door. Iruma decides to open it carefully, but is interrupted by Clara, who, delighted by her insane joy, pushes the boy, opening at once the entrance to the place. At that instant, a device is triggered, firing several weapons in the boy's direction. He dodges them all incredibly well with his dodging skill, and when he recovers from his absurd fright, he notices that all his classmates are impressed. According to them, this was a prank on the rookie, claiming that no one had ever managed to dodge the dangerous trap before. One of the students in the room tells of someone getting pierced by the swords, drawing everyone's attention. A new student comes through the door, Sabnok Sabro, a bully who was sent to misfit class for fighting with a teacher. He emerges saying that he is not a coward who deflects blades. After all, he should be as strong as possible to become the king of demons. At this point we learn that this position has not been held by anyone in the nether world for some time. The chosen one must be the strongest creature feared by everyone else. The bully student also explains that demons are ranked on 10 levels, and only those at the top of the list, known as Yod, can apply to be the new king. Sabro explains that he beat his teacher in a duel, because that is the fastest way to climb the rankings, then threatens Iruma saying that if the honor student gets in the way of his climbing of the rankings, he will suffer serious consequences. Asmodeus takes the lead in the conversation and warns the bully that he cannot threaten his friend. Both the demon and the whole class are left wondering what that word meant. Just as the protagonist is getting tense with the situation, the class teacher enters the room. Kalego is the class master, and to his misfortune, he will have to deal with Iruma again. Angry at being in charge of the misfits, he quickly summons all the students and orders them to leave the room, because they will have to take a new test that will determine their ranking. He explains that the ranking would be given after they take another test, this one being a run to the end of a mist-covered valley. The goal is to reach the red flag at the end of the course, and then there will be an invocation ritual. The fluffy panel is again invoked, explaining to the students that there are two ways to complete the test. The first is through the Warbling Valley, which is the longest and quietest. The second is the Cutthroat Valley, full of dangers and demonic creatures, but the shortest way to reach the goal. Kalego gets angry and destroys the cute invocation again and says that everyone should take the long way. After all, it is the safest way, and they should avoid the Cutthroat Valley because in this place dwells a creature that controls the whole area, being an extreme danger for anyone who invades its territory. The professor then starts the exam and all the students fly off with their wings, except Iruma, who has no idea how he is going to take this test. He is dragged to the edge of the mountain where he was, due to the speed his classmates left. The sensei pushes the boy to force him to start the test, and he falls from a gigantic height because he doesn't know how to fly. The students end up encountering various obstacles along the way, such as demonic birds and poisonous plants. Asmodeus moves at high speed to be the first to reach the flag, using his summoning snake to help him take out any enemies. At that moment, the Wonder Boy discovers that Clara was on his back the whole time. The girl took advantage of his friend's speed and skill, leaving the boy furious. Asmodeus, in the midst of his rage, realizes that Sabnok has chosen the Cutthroat Valley, disobeying his teacher in order to reach the top of the ranking faster. The bully goes through a catastrophic scenario, surrounded by a strong gale that with the slightest carelessness could be dragged into the depths of that place. Kalego wonders what has happened to Iruma, and we learn that the boy falling from the mountain has been captured by a group of demonic vultures that at this very moment are carrying the boy in their beaks, and so one of the creatures releases the protagonist into a very peculiar nest. Asmodeus now tries to save Clara, who at this moment is being devoured by a carnivorous plant. The girl says she accepts her cruel fate and says goodbye to her friend. The Wonder Boy, no longer patient with the situation, uses his sword of fire, cutting the creature in half to save the girl once and for all. Iruma realizes that he is facing a giant demon bird, and believes that he will not get out of there alive. The boy tries to show the animal that he wants to help it by making a cut on himself and then placing something to stop the bleeding, stating that he wants to do the same to the demon bird. The creature accepts the unexpected help, but as the protagonist prepares to help it, a drop of his wound comes into contact with the bird's wound, thus instantly healing the creature. The boy is left without understanding what has happened, reflecting within himself about the powers that a simple human could acquire in the nether world. The bird decides to give him a ride to the desired place as a form of gratitude. Then the two leave the nest on their way to the student's goal. In this instant, we observe that Sabnok is suffering through an extremely difficult struggle against the dreaded guardian of the Cutthroat Valley. The bully boy refuses to lose the battle, driven by his desire to become the king of demons since he was very young. None of his brothers or relatives have been interested in the position, and so he intends to receive this title to bring honor to his family. Then he makes use of the special ability developed exclusively by his own clan, called weapon creation, being able to create weapons made of the same material he is biting. The boy puts a piece of bronze between his teeth and conjures a huge axe in his hands. He starts to attack the monster and makes several attacks, but his opponent manages to dodge them easily. Going into a state of rage, Sabnok bites a small silver plate that he wore on his necklace, conjuring up a powerful sword of the same material. He advances toward the monster, which very easily stops the strong attacks using only its paw. Realizing that the fight was completely in favor of the huge guardian, the brave boy prepared to receive the final attack. However, Iruma put himself in front of him, asking him to stop the battle. Without understanding what was happening, his classmate pushes him away, telling him not to get in the way of his fight. The protagonist brought with him the giant bird that was giving him a ride, she being the son of the creature that haunts the Cutthroat Valley. Happy that they are together again and that their only successor's wound is healed, the two creatures bow to the boys as a form of thanks. At the final test site, the professor awaits the arrival of the students, and Asmodeus is the first to complete the mission, along with Clara, who was still at his back taking advantage of him this whole time. The boy wonders where Iruma is. After all, he imagined that his friend had already arrived. Time passes and the vast majority of the students complete the test, except for the protagonist and Sabnok, who in the last seconds impress everyone by arriving on the scene, mounted on the guardian of the haunting valley. Still, Professor Kalego places them with last place signs, demonstrating to all their classmates that they were the slowest in the race. The sensei explains that he will announce everyone's level through the ranking owl that watches the participants during the entire test. He explains that all you have to do is put your hand in the creature's pocket and remove an insignia, and the object will show each one's rank. The students form a line and the first to know his ranking is Asmodeus, being ranked in the 4th position of the 10 levels of the demon ranking. We understand that the higher the number, the more powerful the demon, and obviously the Wonder Boy ends up impressing everyone with his ranking. The students receive their results and most of them end up in the last positions, receiving a grade of 1 or 2, except Clara, who, being the second to finish the test, ended up being classified in 3rd position, making her friend angry. After all, she did the whole course behind his back. Iruma is called to find out his ranking, and as he puts his hand in the owl's pocket, he frightens the owl and the animal quickly flies away. The boy is confused because he couldn't find out where he stood. Meanwhile, his classmates are startled to realize that in his hand there is a golden ring. Sabnok is reminded of his childhood, where his father told him about the prophecy of the Demon King, who would be a powerful being from another world carrying in his right hand a golden ring. An obscure creature comes out of the ring, leaving Iruma terrified. At that moment, that unknown being releases an extremely powerful scream, leaving all the demons in the vicinity in collapse, except for the protagonist, who suffers nothing from that sonorous attack. Clara has the brilliant idea of singing a lullaby to that demonic shadow, and incredibly it works, calming it down and stopping the loud scream. Professor Kalego tells the boy that he will take care of the situation, but as he approaches him he is threatened by the dark creature, showing that if he intervenes in any way, he will cut his arm off. The boy's friends, who also tried to help him by approaching him, had their energies drained by the evil entity. And in the midst of this complicated situation, the school principal arrives on the scene. He informs his grandson that this was a gluttonous ring, which fed on the power of the wearer who wore it. The creature was screaming like that because it had not eaten for a long time. Sullivan claims that by keeping the monster fed, the boy will have no problem with it. In this way, his grandfather delivers part of his energy for that demon to return to the ring. And so the first day of class comes to a close, with everyone being placed in some ranking. Iruma ended up in the lowest position, because he didn't get his badge with the ranking owl. But in the end, the boy was happy with the result. After all, this way he wouldn't attract anyone's attention. The next day, Iruma tries to go about his student life normally without attracting the looks of the other students. However, his grandfather does not make his life any easier, dropping him off at the door of the school using his new carriage. On orders from his master, Opera rolls out a red carpet and announces the arrival of the principal's grandson. The boy is embarrassed by the whole presentation and immediately goes with his head down to his new classroom. That day, after the class roll call, Professor Kalego informs the students that they will have new classes with other tutors and that they should avoid doing anything stupid for the rest of the day. And so the trio of friends spend the entire day learning about the various areas of demon education. At this point, the class finds themselves in the Flower Tower, the place where they were to learn diabotany from Professor Stolas Suzy. The new tutor explains that the activity for the day was to make a plant bloom using magic to speed up the process. She says that after performing the spell, the small seed will take shape in any way the user wishes, thus generating several different types of plants. Iruma knows that he will not be able to accomplish the task, as he cannot use magic because he is only a human. Soon after, he notices the presence of the senior students and the student council itself in that place. Sabnok tries to impress them. After all, his goal is to become the king, but when he conjures the spell he ends up summoning a plant that devours anything around it. The boy receives a B from his teacher and is disappointed with himself. Asmodeus performs magic on his seed and generates a kind of flaming plant, able to withstand the density of its flames. The sensei finds this interesting and gives the young man an A grade, leading to a small discussion between the boy Wonder and the bully. And so, all the students in the class conjured up their own plants. Some different plants appeared, others very strange and some bizarre, as was the case of Clara. Her seed generated a totally unknown being that is part of her small tree. Iruma, noticing that all his colleagues were managing to summon something, tries to perform the spell on his seed, and when the boy recites the magic words, a light is emitted from his ring, and with that, the magic is performed, generating a blue glow throughout the Tower of Plants. His grandfather calls him via the hellphone he had given him as a gift in the morning, informing the boy that the day he contained the creature that was in his ring, he fed it with part of his power, and with this, any wearer carrying the ring will be able to use spells. At that moment, a gigantic Japanese cherry tree takes over much of the Babel's institution. A few seconds later, a student runs into the student president's office and informs her of the event. She reflects to herself that that tree was only generated in the human world, and in her hands she holds a notebook with notes about Iruma, that possibly he is a real human. Later that same day, we find out that there is a group of cold and calculating students who go around the school hunting down rowdy and misfit students in order to teach them a lesson. This elite group is known as the Student Council, and the president is the leader of them all. She still maintains her doubts about the existence of humans. After all, only high-ranking demons have access to this kind of information. She enters a room and then opens a secret passage, gaining access to ancient manuscripts from her family that prove the existence of humans. When she opens the book, she sees a story of romance between two students. It was a manga. She is amazed by this story, but at the same time she is confused because she doesn't understand what is written. Noticing someone approaching the scene, she keeps the small book with her and leaves without anyone seeing her. On the outskirts of the school, Iruma offers his help to clean up the many flower petals that are falling from the tree he has summoned. The workers then ask the boy to take out all the numerous garbage bags, and because he never refuses anything, he accepts. Asmodeus approaches his friend, and to save him the trouble, he burns all the garbage that was on the site. Clara arrives there bringing with her a cluster of waste to be burned, but runs into a rock and spills it all on her colleagues. The protagonist warns that it is getting late and that the two should go back home. He would stay behind to clean up all the mess. Later, while walking through the halls of the school, Iruma bumps into the student president and the girl is embarrassed, because that same scene happened in the manga, and she quickly deduces that the misfit boy was trying to get her to fall in love with him. Will the student president be Iruma's ally or enemy? Will she discover the boy's real human identity? So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.